Evening, folks. How are y'all tonight? It's your man Donald King. I spent last week with my little boy over in Indiana, so I didn't shoot Wednesday's podcast, but here we are tonight. I hope the evening is finding you well. Hey, for everyone who is placing orders for desserts for this holiday season, get at me as soon as you possibly can. Things fill up pretty fast, and organizing things can be a little tricky. But I always get it done anyway, so just sooner than later is better. That said, we want to get into the subject of tonight's podcast, right? Nothing travels faster than stories on the tongues of fools. People love stories. People love stories, right? The reason why people love stories is because stories don't really make you think too often. They allow you to feel and believe, right? Even stories that do make you think, which are few, far, and in between, those stories, they generally make it so that you are pleasantly surprised. You get sort of the euphoric high of having epiphanies as stories unfold. However, you feel the epiphany, you feel the aha moment. They don't really make you think. They may make you think after the fact. But for the most part, you're just allowed to feel and believe. And the pleasantness of, narratives is when they take an unexpected turn and they allow you to feel the euphoric high of an epiphany, but then you are just feeling. People who love stories don't like to think. People who love stories don't like to think. People who love stories don't like reality. They prefer to interact with stories because stories are easier to control. When you are taking stories in, you're taking them in. Your mind is sort of on react mode, not necessarily actively engaged, right? Which gets into the reason why so many people take issue with me. Okay? A lot of people there in their feelings about Donald King. This man says outlandish things, but he makes sense. I don't like him, but I can't really hate the things he says either. Everything he says makes sense. He won't be humble enough for me. He won't make himself small enough for me. I don't like that he's so confident. Why doesn't he do things to prostrate himself before me and make me know that he is controllable, make me know that he is impressionable? What is it like to hang out with me? And I'll show you why I'm getting to all this here in a few minutes. But what's it like to hang out with me? What is it like to hang out with Donald King? That broadly depends on how honest you are. Right? You see, dealing with me in reality is very different than how you sort of perceive me through social media. A lot of people who have interacted with me in reality, they're like, oh shit, you're nothing like I thought you were going to be. I thought you were going to be super intense. Then they find out that it's like I'm pretty chill and laid back. I'm nice, super nice, but people get different versions of me depending on how they are. That's the problem with being an avatar, is the fact that it's like I'm sort of like an empath, like the ultimate empath. And when you're around me, first, you're always going to get a perfect reflection of you back to you. Right? Whenever you're hanging around me, you're always going to get a perfect reflection of who and how you actually are I'm going to reflect it back to you with laser precision, right? So when you're with me, at first, you're going to be like, oh man, he's super chill, he's super cool, he's super relaxed, because that's how you project. You're super chill, you're calm, you're relaxed, you're in the pocket. Sometimes I'm going to go out of my way to make you feel comfortable, but for the most part, how you present is how I present. But it's like I'm like staring into a mirror. The longer you look, the more flaws you see. It's kind of like you walking past the mirror with a critical eye. First, you look at yourself and you're like, damn, I'm fly. All right, yeah. I'm feeling myself, right? That's how it is in the beginning. And then all of a sudden, you start to notice little things about yourself that you project onto me. You start to notice little things. You're like, man, I'm overconfident. I seem like I'm really confident, but I'm not. I seem like I'm really like sort of put together, but I'm not. Oh my God, it's like I liked how I felt before, but I don't like how I feel right now. And what's happening in the process of this is you're having your true inner story reflected back to you. So people, they start off loving being around me. And then the more that they're around me, they start to perceive all these insecurities and frailties and things. And they're like, you're not how I thought you were. And I'm just a mirror. No. You're not how you thought you were. I just reflected back to you. And I'm not trying to do it. It's unconscious. It's completely unconscious. The reason why I'm even mentioning this is because when I'm around truthful, honest, and confident people, I'm always even kill. And I'm saying this as a person who can observe myself from outside my own experience. I'm always even kill. I'm always, like I say, I always like being around strong, confident people because they're settled in who they are, and I don't feel all of their insecurity. Like, what you don't understand is I feel it in my core. I feel all the uncertainty. I feel all the things that get hidden behind the deep social acting and trying to play cool and all those other things. I see to the core of what you are, and I accidentally start mirroring it to you. Which gets kind of weird. Because then all of a sudden, I get caught up in the middle of it, and I'm like, oh man, this person is really insecure. They're really emotionally unstable. They project this air of confidence, but they're not confident at all. So then I start doing all sorts of extra work to try and lift the person's self-esteem. So I start trying to, I start trying to give them all sorts of compliments and edify and uplift them, because it's like them feeling down and insecure and incomplete and uncertain and powerless. It's emotionally draining on me. And I'm like, shit. But how does this all factor into everything I'm talking about? The point of the podcast. You see, when people spend time around me and they, for real, spend time around themselves, and they get hit with all that negativity, and they get hit with all that uncertainty, and they get hit with a true reflection of what's happening inside them, first thing they do, try to pin it on me. I saw somebody put up this post, right? They were like, you're different online than you are in person. And I knew that they were talking to me. I just shrugged it off. It's whatever. Right? And I'm like, no, you're different online and in person than how you try to project to other people. Now, I didn't say this to them. But this is the truth of the circumstance. You're very confident. You seem very sure of yourself. All the way until you get around someone who reflects what's hidden beneath all the deep social acting back to you with layers of precision. And because I do this, a lot of times people are like, oh man, it's like, you know what? He's weird. He's this, he's that. He makes me feel uncomfortable. I don't like that guy and all these other things. And only thing they're doing is spending time with themselves. When you are spending time with me, you're spending time with you. And the more honest you are, is the more the authentic me is allowed to be in this space with you. So that's when you really get to know me. But the more given you are to deep social acting and pageantry and all the things that sort of deflect attention away from what's really going on inside of you, the more cursory you are, is the more cursory I am. Except my cursory is reflecting your real inner dialogue back to you. It's crazy. It's insane. People like me all the way until they realize they can't control me. Once they realize they can't control me, then I seem weird. At least that's the word they try to describe me as. I seem off-putting. You know, I put up boundaries online. Hey, this is something I'm trying to accomplish. Do not cross my boundary. When I put up a boundary, everybody's real colors showed. Fuck you. That is the main thing that came across. Fuck you. This is what I don't really like you. And you've given me an opportunity to aggress against you in a way that I know, or at least I think, is going to bother you, violate a boundary. So I'm going to use this as a weapon against you. Gave me an opportunity to see who's who. So that's how we rock, huh? Nothing travels faster than stories on the tongues of fools. You see, when people realize they can't control me, you know what they do? They start trying, since they can't control me in reality, and since they can't be around me in reality, what they do is they try to control me in stories. They create stories about me and circulate stories about me and find cowardly people to pass these stories along to. I can't defeat you in reality, so I'll defeat you in stories. Now, see, the funny part about it is, this proclivity, it's nothing new. It's nothing new. Back in Jesus' day, when Jesus was being tried by the secret council of priests, what did they do? They didn't want to try him in front of a crowd. They tried him alone in a room where they could create stories and make agreements with themselves about him and the value of what he brought. And then what they would do is they weaponized stories against him to the crowd in order to justify his murder and execution, his execution. When you're a coward, you don't deal with people or things in reality. You deal with them in stories. People spreading rumors about me because they're too chicken shit to face me and deal with me in reality. Cowardly. People who listen to and spread the rumors. Cowardly. If you deal with me in reality, then you know I'm your brother and your friend. I never brought anything but goodness, kindness, and compassion to you, generosity, honesty. I bring goodness to you in reality, but you're too scared to deal with me in reality, so what do? You create stories about me and deal with me in stories. When you deal with me in stories, you make me out to be the villain so you can be good and acting like a coward. You spread these rumors. I had this guy who I called a friend for decades. The motherfucker never did anything but try to compete against me. First to spread rumors behind my back, try and start rumor mills, try to recruit cowardly people into finding me defective somehow with no evidence to base it on. And these people, they bought into these stories from this jealous person. And I'm not even saying jealous because, I'm what I am. I mean, like the entire time I've known this person, sheer envy for no reason whatsoever. And like I was mentioning a little bit earlier in the podcast, being around them took so much energy because it was always me trying to elevate and uplift them, trying to keep them from facing and dealing with all the insecurity and uncertainty that just sort of swims around in their soul on a daily basis. They're really good at deep social acting, really good at acting cool under pressure, and it's just a bundle of nerves. And when you're around someone who isn't fooled by the story you try to sell the world, and they reflect it back to you, well, you're going to hate that person. And that's what it ultimately boils down to. Every person who has a problem with me, they dislike me for two main reasons. One, because I represent reality and they are currently housing corruption. And two, because anything that represents reality deals in truth, and anything that represents corruption deals in stories. And me speaking truth interferes with, interrupts, and invalidates their stories. Let me say that for you again. You don't like me because truth invalidates your stories. You don't like me because truth invalidates your stories. It's so funny when you start thinking about this whole COVID shenanigan they have going on right now. What did they do? In order to get everybody on board with this whole vaccination thing and everything, what did they do? They took it out of reality. They took evidence out of reality. They took cognizance for everything that was happening, measuring stories and sources, comparing facts. They took it out of the realm of reality and brought it into idealism. The whole thing became about stories. The whole COVID vaccine and all this other ridiculousness, it became about stories. And what did I tell you about stories? Stories make it so you can feel and believe. And what did they do? They tried to appeal to authority and force you to believe and keep everything contained within stories you were being told. They got you to make decisions based on stories. All stories. People were trying to compare stories to stories, not actual data to data sets. They were comparing stories to stories. When you compare stories to stories, idealism to idealism, nothing's true. Nothing's consistent with reality. And when people were trying to figure out what's consistent with reality, as opposed to looking to stories to inform their decisions, what happened? They get shut down. Anybody who's trying to direct your attention to reality gets shut down, and you are redirected to the stories. Then you have idiots arguing over different sets of stories. And these rumors spread so fast, and stories circulate so quick and mutate so quick, that right now, people are making material impacts on reality based on these things that can only exist in idealism. Stories only exist in idealism. All these people out here have, especially in my hometown, they have all this antipathy towards me based on stories. Not interacting with me for real. And for those who have interacted with me for real, what did they do? They stopped interacting with me and retreated into little echo chambers where they could create and circulate stories and interact with the stories instead. When you choose stories over reality, you're choosing not only to be corrupt, you're choosing to be cowardly. You ever see somebody commit a logical fallacy? What happens at the most mechanical level when someone commits a logical fallacy? They create a story about what's happening, agree to the story about what's happening, and then argue against the story of what's happening as opposed to engaging information and topics of debate in real time. They're not interacting with what's happening. They're not interacting with the person. They're interacting with the story they concocted in their mind, and that story has absolutely nothing to do with what's occurring in reality. That's the way that it works. Cowards love stories. Cowards circulate stories before investigating things properly. You'll make decisions based on stories before you step into a situation or scenario and see what's what. How cowardly is that? You would read a story about a bear, or watch a movie about a bear, or watch like the Berenstein Bears, and you'd rather deal with these fictitious bears like Yogi the Bear, Boo Boo the Bear, and the Berenstein Bears, and all these other things. You prefer dealing with those than actually getting to know what a real bear is like in reality. You prefer stories over everything. And maybe a bear is a bad example because you might you might not want to get to know a bear up close and personal, but you prefer the story over reality. Yeah, man. That's what it is. What is this? What'd I say? Nothing travels faster than stories through vacant minds. Nothing travels faster than stories through vacant minds. If you don't think, if you're not in the habit of thinking, and you're in the habit of believing, then you're an ideologue. Stories do the thinking for you. Think about any ideologue from a religious sect. How does it go? Stories inform their worldview. They build their lives around stories. Look at Christians. How do they interact with each other? To their face through deep social acting, and behind each other's back through rumors, through stories. I don't even know how dialed in I am on this one. I don't really think anybody pays attention to me these days, so it's like, you know what? I'm just going to keep doing what I'm doing until this entity I'm hosting tells me to stop. And I'm cool with that. I make peace with it. I'm putting this out here to help you all. But ultimately, it is your responsibility to choose reality over the story. You have to choose reality over the story. And if you don't choose reality over the story, that's on you. That's on you. But it's not reality's job. It's not reality's job to get you to stop listening to stories over using your reasoning ability and your faculty of intuition and your capacity for honesty. You can deal with things in reality or you can deal with them through stories. You get to choose. If you deal with things through stories, you are necessarily blocking reality out in efforts to, well, protect your identity, protect your inner story. When you block reality out, you are corrupt. There are no two ways to cut it. When you block reality out, you are corrupt. It doesn't matter if you don't like me. It doesn't matter if you don't like the things that I say. I'm consistent with reality. The things I say are true. Okay? If you don't like truth, if you don't like people who speak truth, we're not going to get along. If you prefer stories over reality, we're not going to get along. Thing is, regardless of whether or not you like me or the things I'm saying, what's going to come to pass is ultimately going to come to pass. And why? For God's sake, let's hope you can put the stories down long enough to recognize and sync up with what exists and functions mutually independent of idealism. Because, dude, the consequences for choosing corruption over reality, they're bad. That's why I persist in this work. I persist because hosting this entity has allowed me to see what happens to those who choose corruption over reality. I know that you all don't fear it. I know that you're not scared. The reason why I worry is because I know you're like babies. It's like a baby not fearing a burning house. You don't know what's on the other side of that pain. You don't know what's on the other side of the of the injury. So of course you don't fear it. And you have other cowardly people around you telling you to cling to the stories and defend the stories over recognizing and syncing up with reality. So you've learned to trust people over reality, and that's a bad move. That's a bad move. I persist out of care and concern for you. Again, I go until I can't go any further, but in the end, I want it to be said that the only thing that stood between you and getting to know reality as a system was your pride. Maybe some cowardice, but mostly your pride. Pride and cowardice are mutually inclusive, so it's like splitting hairs. The only thing that will stand between you and reality is your pride. And I'll tell you this much right now. Defending stories over trying to recognize and sync up with reality is only done through pride. It is what it is. We're going to cut this one short. Trying to make these a little bit shorter. Yeah, man, I don't know if anybody tuned in out there tonight, but if you did, thank you. These days, again, I don't expect to be too popular, but when you're speaking truth, you're not going to be. You're not going to be. And you got to be strong enough to do this. I was thinking about this a little bit earlier. You know, what would you do if you were in my situation? And this is a real question. What would you do in my situation if you knew you had to say things that were going to piss people off, and you knew you had to do things that were going to make people feel uncomfortable and enter into states of cognitive dissonance, but they had to be done? And the price for doing the things, the price for saying the things, was unpopularity, having your livelihood threatened, having, losing your family, losing everything. Would you be strong enough to see it through? Or would you give up? And see, if you'd give up, you were never strong enough to do it to begin with. I don't do this for pride. I don't do this for attention. I don't do this for praise. I do this because I genuinely care. This entity, the things that it allows me to see, and what's in store for people who choose corruption over reality. It's rough. Like you're in for a bad ride. I know it's easy to not fear. You have no frame of reference for it because the worst thing you know in life is pain. The worst thing you know is pain. There are so many things in existence that are so much worse than pain. And hosting this entity has allowed me to sort of get a glimpse at some of that stuff. And because I see how bad it is, I don't want that for you. I really don't. But in the end, only you have the power to. Only you have the power to prevent yourself from entering into that horrificness. You have to choose to see reality over defending your inner story. It's a choice you have to make. Well, that said, let's go ahead and get to this. Y'all already know what it is. This is Sorting and Sorting Principles with Donald King. I am Donald King. I am your avatar for this cycle, Avatar Cycle 13. I host a function of reality, what they refer to in the Christian faith system as Holy Ghost or Holy Spirit. This entity, it allows me to see reality in principles, akin to what humans refer to as binary, except instead of being combination between, or instead of it being an oscillation between two values, I see in four values. This allows me to see reality in damn near perfect pitch, and the only thing that prevents me from seeing reality in absolute pitch is the level of honesty I perform at. I think that I'm a very honest person, but every time I think that I reach the epitome of honesty, I do a little bit more digging and find that there's more to go. So I can't claim to be exactly perfect just yet in terms of understanding. I can't claim to see everything exactly to spec just yet because I'm still striving for personal honesty myself. Anywho, I sort principles into different categories, categories of viral parasitic organization, and into the categories of natural organization. And in viral parasitic organization, that is the basis of society. And all of that's based in corruption. And there are static rules that apply to this system, just like there are static rules that apply to natural organization. And because we are in the parasitic mode, things sort of get intertwined and overlapped. And was just a jumble. And reality sends in an agent, the thing that I happen to be hosting, to sort of help viral parasitic species get all their principles sorted out so that they know what they're looking at. Right? All right. Oh, wait. I got a comment here. Angel comes in. Brother Angel style! My brother. Yo, how does one render unto Caesar what is Caesar's without perpetuating the story of money or economies? That's a great question, and I can answer that for you. The render unto Caesar what is Caesar's, it has more to do with not just perpetuating cycles of destructiveness and competitiveness, aggression within the social sphere. Like, Jesus showed up and, people are like, oh man, you're telling us to roll with reality. All right. And it has to do with ideologues just sort of blindly who want to rage out, blindly like joining in and mobbing up behind like, yeah, fuck the system. We're going to tear it down, and trying to use Jesus as sort of an edifice to wild out behind. That's the same thing behind when it's the same sentiment behind the mentality, slaves be obedient to your masters. It's in essence saying don't use reality as an excuse to try and fight the system. You know what I'm saying? We have to survive in society. And in society, you have to trade your life away for resources to survive on. This is the way that it works. And because we're recombinant species, we sort of have to rely on social systems to help us, supplement and offset our natural limitations and deficits, especially in this day and age. Think about it like this. Even if you could live in the wild and you were able to go to a temperate climate zone where you could live in the wild, natural resources have been harvested by corporations to a degree that you couldn't live in the wild because there's nothing to subsist on out there. Rainforests have been destroyed. The seas have been mined for fucking all the seafood and things of that nature. Like, you can't find real wild animals out there. They've been hunted to extinction, or like, if not hunted to extinction, they've been their populations have been thinned so that people could make room for agriculture, and people in corporate entities and individuals who sort of act as agents for them can profit off of the planet. So it's like right now we're in a situation where the world has been destroyed to a degree that you kind of have to survive on what you can acquire from society in the way of resources, because society has taken away everything else. It's taken away all other options. Right? Society has taken away your options for survival. So the reason why I mention all of that is because you having to survive in society, you having to figure out how to acquire resources from society, it is paramount to staying alive. And you want to stay alive as long as you can, because you want to do everything you can in the material realm to offset negative impacts you made on reality before going into the distortion. It is a jumble of bullshit, brother. It's a lot to deal with. But yeah, it's like, just don't use being in service to reality as an excuse to sort of like try and destroy the system. That's the whole point. Pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's. It's kind of like, hey, don't use me as an excuse to buck against the system. You know what I'm saying? Like, it's a lot of people who are like, and I'm gonna break down an economy here. I'll probably do that in the next podcast. And it's a parasitic construct, and it's rigged against the people. It always is. It's like a Ponzi scheme. The economy itself is a Ponzi scheme. But yeah, just don't use reality as an excuse to just wild out and be like, nah, fuck them. You know what I'm saying? Do your best to operate within the confines of the system. And I'll say it like this. Live conscientiously. And that's the best way to say it. Live conscientiously. Live conscientiously. Don't like, even in my work, I'm not trying to fight the system. I'm explaining the system to it in mechanisms so that it gets a fundamental grasp on what it is and why, if it stays on its current trajectory, it is headed to self-annihilation 1,000 out of 1,000 times. Period. Like, as long as you run on the mode, you are heading to self-termination. So I'm like, yeah. You have to understand the mechanism of yourself. And that's the same thing Jesus was doing in his work. Trying to help society understand itself. Like, yeah. Kind of like I'm trying to help humanity understand itself. Like, yeah, you're running on a mode. That mode leads to self-termination. And you still have to pay reality for all the imbalances you cause and contribute to. You need help. Let me help you. But I'm not sitting here like, guys, we have to fight and tear down the system. Nobody do anything to. No, we have to be realistic now. We have to be realistic. Parasites at the top are destroying everybody because they're addicts. Parasites at the top are destroying the entire system and themselves along with it because they're addicts. They don't know what they're doing because they're following a mode. Kind of like addiction is a mode. And if you stay on that mode, it leads to self-termination. That's the way it works. But that's the point of pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's, or pay back to Caesar what is Caesar's. It's don't use me as an excuse to buck the system, because you still have to survive within the system. Right? You still have to survive within the system. And it was Jesus mostly telling his followers, be conscientious. Be conscientious. Don't turn me into a story. Do not turn me into a story. Don't turn me into a mythology. Don't turn me into something that you can escape into. No, you're going to be conscientious. Period. Don't be like, hey, you know what? Jesus said I don't have to pay taxes. So it's like, you know what? Fuck y'all. Eat a dick in your face. It's too much. It's too much. Live conscientiously. Don't use Jesus as an excuse to go to the store and steal. Well, society is stealing from us. So, Jesus clearly said that it's like, it's parasitic. And if society's parasitic, then that means it's stealing from us. So that means I'm allowed to steal from it too. Sort of leaning into one's inner sense of justice. Yeah, that's not cool. Don't use Jesus, don't use reality as an excuse to perpetuate your own sense of justice. And that's what pay unto Caesar what is Caesar's means. Don't use reality as excuse to sort of promote your own sense of justice. You have to survive in society. Be conscientious. Do what you can. Do what you can. Anywho, yeah, guys, so check this out. Hopefully, brother Angela answered your question for you well enough. But, pardon me. Let me see. You guys, I shoot these podcasts on Mondays and Wednesdays on Facebook Live. And I also shoot posts to Instagram. I fly these videos over to my YouTube channel so you can check them out on at your leisure. I've been super busy. I haven't gotten a chance to get caught up to date, but I'm going to try and get that done in the next couple of days because I'm very far behind, and that's on me. I take full responsibility for that. And then also, I post content to Medium. You can check me out on all those platforms. Guys, if you feel inspired to, if you love what I do, you appreciate what I do, and you want to help your brother out, to help produce some content, to help me, stay moving on this end, because this is taking a great toll on my life. If you want to help me keep moving and doing things, you can always join the Patreon family. I'm Avatar Cycle XIII, that's Avatar Cycle 13. And then also you can cash app your boy a little bit of love. Donnie Kang at Cash App. Donnie Kang, DonnieKang. Again, all donations, they go to helping keep things organized on this end and helping me get into a space where I can really focus on this work, because there's still a lot to do. There's a lot to do, and I've run into so many hitches just with people trying to slow down and suppress and delay reality. And unfortunately, they've put a lot of other people in a great deal of danger just trying to protect their pride and their senses of deserving. And everything you give, it helps me stay moving for as long as I can. Again, I don't know how long I'm going to be in this body, and I want to get as much done as I can while I'm over here. So whatever you can do to help, you're greatly appreciated. I love you. I love you, Brother Angel. Thank you so much for all that you've done to help through the years. I appreciate you. And I'm just going to keep going until I can't go any further. So that when this is all done, I can stand before reality and say, I did my best. Did my best. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get off here. Hopefully I got to your question well enough, Brother Angel. Hey, I love you, man. I appreciate all of y'all. I love you. Hopefully you're having a good night. And, hey, man, if y'all want some desserts, get at your boy. Because, man, I'm telling you, this peach cobbler cheesecake, my version, I'm very excited about it. I think y'all going to like it a lot. So anyway, get at you, man. I'm going to talk to you. Y'all have a good night now. All right. Also, what's the word I'm looking for? We'll just go ahead and finish it out real quick. Choose stories. Don't choose stories over reality. In reality, you observe, you investigate, you reason, you're honest with yourself. Stories, all you have to do is feel and believe. It's lazy. It's cowardly. Step into it. See what's what. Be brave. Be brave. You spend some time with me, hey, you feeling some sort of way? Don't go and start rumors behind my back. Don't go start rumors behind my back. Come to me in reality. I'll come to a group of you in reality. We can talk it out in reality. No need for stories. No need for stories at all. It's your men. I'm out.